Welcome to the live U.S. community breakout session at Build. We are thrilled to share the next 2 hours with you in this interactive virtual format. Before we get into the agenda, I want to point out our code of conduct, which is currently in effect, noting no harassment or discrimination will be tolerated. Now on to the team supporting this session. Behind the magic of this virtual breakout is our producer, director, AV engineer, Matthew Calder. You may also hear him over live audio if things go awry or get off track. We'll keep it authentic and engaging for sure. Next up, we've got Nina Swee, who was the visionary for this session. She organized the agenda, session flow, content, and speakers, and she'll be guiding the sessions and discussions throughout. She may also have a few surprises not listed on the agenda. I won't give them all away, but I keep hearing Kubernetes founder. Kubernetes founder. Yeah. Okay, moderating our Q&A throughout will be Karen Jewell and Nils Fronsons. They've got you covered from anything Azure related to the value of developer communities and beyond. We expect questions to be varied and wide-ranging, so give them a run for their money. Ask away. Lastly, I'm Crystal Kelch, hosting and helping Matt on the production side. You may be thinking, she looks different. Yeah, this is day 77 of quarantine. Anyway, I lost my glasses. I don't know where they are, but yeah, you can blame me too if anything gets off track or goes awry, but we're here to keep it lively. Okay, now that we know who's who and who's responsible for what, let's get into the agenda. Our first session will cover technical skilling during uncertain times. We'll then lead into our Cloud Skills Challenge, a gamified learning experience that is currently running. We should get that in the chat window, get a link up there. If you haven't already, just click the link, you'll get a sneak preview of what that's all about. From there, we'll jump into a discussion with leaders in the Azure tech community space. You'll then hear about communities hacking for health, and then Nina and some of the amazing, inspiring work going on there. It's truly, truly remarkable. And then Nina will lead us through a discussion for some of the work going on in Tech for Good with MVPs. And then last but not least, Nitya will close us out with her live sketchnoting. I've seen her in action, both in person and virtually, and she's incredible. So we are so, so excited to be able to share her practice with you today. That should take us about through the 2-hour session. Please take advantage of the live Q&A throughout. We're here to engage with you. We're so thankful that you're joining us virtually. And with that, I'll pass it to Nina. Take it away.
Thank you, Crystal. Hi, everyone. I'm Nina Slee, and I'm super excited to welcome you to our U.S. community session. We're going to go ahead and get started with the technical skilling during uncertain times. I'd like to introduce Scott Emmy, Mary Jo Depovine, and Andres Padilla. They are part of our Microsoft Azure technical training team. And they're going to have a conversation that I think will be really interesting for you. Now, before I go into and hand over to Scott, I have a little bit of icebreaker question. I'd like to know what is the nicest thing that someone has done for you lately? So why don't we go with Mary Jo first, and then Andres can answer that, and then we'll end with Scott, and you can go into your session. And please, for the audience that's joining us, feel free to also put that in your chat window. So Mary Jo, what's the nicest thing that someone has done for you lately?
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Jo. I think the nicest thing that anyone has done for me lately is that I work together at home with my boyfriend, and I have my own office. And every now and again during the day, he'll leave me a little treat, so maybe little chips or a little, snack in front of the door. So then whenever I open the door, I can just get a little snack for myself. So I think that's one of those nice little gestures that I have lately.
That's super sweet. And Andres?
It's always the small things that matter the most. I like that, Mary Jo. The nicest thing that has happened to us recently, to me and my wife was sick and she needed some Sudafed, and our neighbor, we texted her and she actually drove out in the pandemic and found when 5 miles down the road and found some Sudafed out in the store. So I got to get her some flowers or a bottle of wine sooner or later. But that's awesome that she did that for us.
That's an act of love. And over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Nina. I know I'm not supposed to tell dirty stories, but I think one of the nicest things that's happened to me recently is a neighbor loaned me his wheelbarrow because I'm building a garden in the backyard, like so many people are doing, taking advantage of the time on my hands. And he decided to stay and help me move about a ton of topsoil to use in the garden. So I thought that was pretty cool of him. And I'll take it away with our discussion. So really happy to be here, everybody. And I'm with Worldwide Learning, and I lead Azure technical training globally for Microsoft. And our organization's mission is to ensure that all of our Azure customers and partners have got the Azure technical skills that they need to be successful with their projects. We've got about 150 Microsoft certified trainers worldwide delivering foundations and advanced role-based certification classes. And together with our extensive community of learning partners, that's about it's close to 600 learning partners that we work with closely. We've trained hundreds of thousands of customers and partners, both students, IT professionals, developers, so that they can have the certification and the skills they need. And one thing that's been very cool is to see how even during this pandemic, the need for skilling and the desire and interest that people have to actually get into classes and to improve their skills has never been higher. And so joining me today are a couple of our exceptional Microsoft certified trainers, Azure technical trainers from our group that are living this day in and day out. Beginning back at the end of February, we switched about 900 classes that we had through the remainder of Microsoft's fiscal year from physical deliveries, physical in-class trainings to virtual classes. And so they've learned a lot through that process. And you've already seen them there, Andreas, who's out of Florida, and Mary Jo, who is out of Amsterdam. And also, it's cool that one of the things I love about this job and this organization is that our customers might be headquartered in a certain location, like we have many U.S. customers, of course, but their IT professional and developer employees are worldwide, and that's why we've got trainers everywhere. And so, with that, let's get the perspective from our trainers. And the first question I've got is you've been doing trainings like this in classes for throughout the entire year, some before COVID started, some after, but have you seen any changes in the kind of the interests, the topics of technology that are coming up with the students in your class? And let's begin with Andreas.
Love the question, Scott. Yeah, the trend I'm seeing lately is that I'm getting a lot more poking around in interest when it comes to DevOps, and the reason is usually because we're in COVID-19 days. You know, the normal is different. We're sort of in that business continuity and disaster recovery mode, trying to make sure that companies, enterprises can work and function, you know, remotely. And with that comes being able to continually deploy, continually develop, and manage release life cycles. And the release cycles for applications is actually slowed down because people are working and ramping up their DevOps skill set, and they're looking to see how they can not only tap into the cloud but leverage that whole DevOps process in the cloud, the release life cycle, release pipelines, automatic builds, and with that comes a little bit of, just education and getting their hands in it and working with it and hopefully automating it sooner than later. So that's one trend that I'm seeing lately, and a lot more questions in that department.
Very good. Thank you. And Mary Jo, what's your perspective?
Yeah, so I think I would agree with Andre that indeed I see more of a focus on Azure DevOps, not only from the software engineer field, but also when it comes to those data engineers or the data scientists that normally work more within their own field, but now they're also venturing into DevOps to see how they can automate their work better and how they can actually bring their work into production in a smooth way as well through collaboration with their colleagues as well. So I'm seeing this focus that nowadays we're trying to, there's an enhanced focus on whatever brings us the most value and how we can get everything into production, not just, keep ourselves within the pilot or POC phase anymore. And I think for that, being able to also collaborate very well with other roles, so understanding as well the field that other roles are in. So for example, as a data scientist, understanding, what a software engineer has to go through as well. And I think that's also one of those things that we see in our classes, that people really try to have a broad understanding of the whole landscape that they might get into, basically, not only their own expertise.
Very good. Mary Jo, now you, with your data and AI background, are you seeing an increased need for some of the data engineering related topics, because there's so much work going on that's related to COVID to run models and to use machine learning in that regard, but you have to have the infrastructure in place to support that. Are you seeing an uptick there?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's related to a couple of points. One of them especially having people being more focused on bringing their project into production. But also being, they want to automate, they want to also have the necessary infrastructure to make sure that they can actually run their models. So for example, this week we were running a data science course, and they were really interested in how, even though they were data scientists, they were very interested in how the data engineering piece of it worked, how, where to store their data, where to get the data from, how that data actually gets into their solution, and how that would work for their organization as well. So we definitely see an increased interest in that field from a data science perspective too.
Great. And I'm not going to let you off the hook yet. I got one more question. We'll start with you and then go to Andres. So as an instructor, as a certified trainer, you don't just, we run our classes, and a IT pro, a developer will attend that class, usually as part of a continuation of their educational journey. And then they may do things after that, maybe use MS Learn, go to Docs, whatever they may do, their own experimentation. But they're also many times working towards certification and achieving that certification, which means taking an exam. What sort of guidance do you give to your learners in your classes about how to best prepare and to continue their learning journey?
Yeah, so we often talk about this at the end of a course as well, and I think it depends a little bit on what type of learner you are, but I noticed that a lot of people are just saying they want to get hands-on. And I think that's also the best way, and even for me personally, that's the best way that I learn, and I see that that's also the way that most of my students learn, to just get going, to just do something, to create something, create demos, do exercises, go through the quick starts, the tutorials within Azure documentation, find hackathons that you can participate in, and especially now during COVID-19, there are so many hackathons that are being set up, and there will be more sessions about Tech for Good as well. So I see that there is an increase in this as well, and that is such a good learning experience as well. Because just reading the documentation, just watching videos, I don't think it really will have you grasp the essence of the technology, but just by doing it and by creating it, I think that's the best way to learn, and it really shows what you've learned as well. It gives you so much satisfaction to have actually created something as well.
Thank you for that, Mary Jo. Let's get the same answer or a similar answer from you, Andres. What's your perspective in terms of continuing your learning?
Yeah, I always communicate on day one to all my students, and I tell them I'm a motivational speaker junkie. I love listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I love listening to Will Smith. Has one of the ones that has stuck with me from day one, and he tells a story of how he evolved in his career, and he did it brick by brick. And it took him day in and day out being methodical and snacking on resources that would help him build. And that's my advice that I give to anybody who's attending my courses, is saying, hey, find a tutorial, find a voice that you really love, stick with that. If you enjoy that tutorial, that content, there's thousands of directions or portals that you can poke into and look into that can help you develop what you're trying to gain, and start building a base. Whether it's a demo base, whether it's a documentation base, and build on that tutorial after tutorial, day by day, snacking on different videos, demos. You're going to start over time. 1 month's going to turn into 6, and you're going to have this incredible working machine that you look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I accomplished that. The cloud, it can be immense. Sometimes it can be a little bit daunting. Find some area that you love, whether it's app development, DevOps, AI, the infrastructure. If you love that, stick with it, grow with that, find videos. Scott Hanselman, Azure Fridays. I love that session. They're 12-minute sessions. Don't miss them. There's not a Friday that I don't watch Azure Fridays. Find it, and you'll just grow with it. You're not going to solve it every, overnight. Just a little bit by little bit. That's it.
Great, thank you. So summarizing that, continuing the learning, going through hands-on activity, and by the way, all of the hands-on labs that we use in our trainings are available through GitHub, and so that's one easy way to keep at it and trying it on your own. And then, so Andre's suggestion of making sure you're getting different voices involved in your learning and picking experts, for example, and tracking them and doing it in snackable sessions. So thank you for both those. This is our last question for the trainers. You all are part of the Microsoft Certified Trainer community, which is a worldwide global community of many thousands of trainers. And I think staying connected in that network is extremely important. And I like to think that learning can be a team sport. And so why don't you share your thoughts on how you keep up your network and how you're able to stay connected to people that matter in this community, and how you're able to share learning in that regard. Why don't we stick with you, Andres, and then we'll close with Mary Jo.
Awesome, Scott. I try to reach out weekly to some new member of my team that I haven't spoken to in maybe a month, and I try to ask them just a random question. Hey, how you doing? Can you help me out with this issue? How did you work this demo into your delivery? Little by little, that conversation turns into, hey, did you talk to this individual? Not only do I try to, incorporate all my colleagues, but anytime I get a chance to go to a conference and just show up, maybe on an online meeting, an online conference nowadays being remote with COVID-19, just show up. And I promise you, someone in the audience, someone is going to connect with you, and they're going to point you in the right direction or want to help you. The altruistic side of this industry, I've never met someone yet who didn't want to help me. They always want to point me in the right direction, help me solve an issue. People want to help. And it's just a matter of sometimes reaching out and shaking someone's hand, and you'd be surprised what they're willing to do for you. So just show up. That's my advice to anybody.
Thank you, Andres. And Mary Jo, what's your answer?
Yeah, I think that Andre is actually making a great observation, and I was actually so surprised when I joined Microsoft how willing everyone was to help. But I've also found two other communities that have really helped me to increase my knowledge as well. And one was just finding a community of like-minded people. So for me, that was looking for groups of women in tech or women in AI. Also because that really gave me some other insights into other technologies that I normally in my day-to-day work don't really focus on, but it's still very interesting to learn about, such as quantum computing or blockchain or any of those technologies. But next to that, I created my own little community of working on this voluntary project for AI for Good. And just working together with a couple of people on this project was actually spans for a long time as well. I think having such a common goal where you all are in it to learn and to really, create something, that for me has also been a great learning environment, where we also have this great community of just being able to reach out to everyone, finding help, finding other people that can help from externally as well. So there's multiple ways really that you can find your network, so you can expand your network as well in different ways to help you learn, I think.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank you both, Andres, Mary Jo. You're not only fantastic trainers, but you're also lifelong learners, and we love that about all of the trainers in our organization. And so thank you again for sharing your experiences and your insights. And I want to call out that our organization of global trainers, we're continuing to expand and grow. So if any of you are interested in becoming a trainer yourselves, let's go to careers.microsoft.com and look for Azure Technical Trainers and keep this journey going. So with that, Nina, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Scott, Mary Jo, and Andres. Really great conversation. And Andres, now that I know you are a motivational speaker junkie, so am I. I'm sure we have some great playlists to trade with each other after this session. I'm getting pinged by Matt, our producer, that we've got a special guest come in. What do we have, Matt?
Hey, yeah, jumping in here to interrupt because we've got Jeff Sandquist coming up. His team does Microsoft Learn. So Jeff, thank you. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having everybody. I lead developer relations for Microsoft. And so I work out of Azure Engineering under Scott Guthrie, and we build lots of online experiences that I think you guys may be starting to use. Microsoft Learn is one of them. And, you know, there was even a question in there about, you know, Microsoft Learn and how do you go about using it. You know, my team is laser focused on how do you create a great digital platform so that when you're unable to do in-person learning, how do you do it at your own pace? And that's what Microsoft Learn is about. And it's growing, and it's because a lot of you are joining it. We've got over 3.9 million learners register for accounts, and probably wouldn't surprise you, but you know, 272% year-over-year growth. Frankly, since people were asking about COVID-19 and changes, we're about 25% month over month on traffic for Microsoft Learn. And Microsoft Learn is really just about a great way for you to go and do hands-on learning, micro-based content for all the technical products at Microsoft. Really a lot of focus on Azure right now, but M365 as well. And it's kind of self-paced and hands-on. We're really excited about it because we think it's, you know, really about a great way that you can train, you don't have to use your own subscription or use your own costs. And I just want to thank you all. Just thank you all for joining us at Build. Build has been, you know, a core group of us over about the last 8 to 9 weeks set out to go kind of really bring this event online in a short period of time. And it wouldn't be an event without an audience. It wouldn't be an event without all of you that have joined. And so I want to thank you for that. As Build winds down and you're looking for a place to connect, I want something new that I hope that you guys will tune into. So as the credits roll for Build, and Build is this 48-hour nonstop event that we follow the sun, and we haven't stopped. We may have rerun a few sessions, but all of anything from the Q&A and many of the sessions is live. So as the credits roll for Build, we're not going off the air. We're staying online, and we're going to go live with a thing called Learn TV. And Learn TV is a way that you can just tune in, aka.ms/LearnTV, or Microsoft.com/learn/TV will get you there. And it's live and on-demand programming that allows you to meet people behind our products. We'll be going through some learning paths there, doing some live Q&A, as well as running some on-demand programming. So I want to thank you very much for coming to this event. My team overall, we built docs.microsoft.com, Microsoft Learn, and we have a great team of our Azure advocates, some of the best presenters. You can see them on Twitter and of course on Learn TV. Thanks for attending Build and joining us all. I really appreciate it and hope that you're doing really well in this current times. But we have a great team here of presenters and trainers that really want to help. And if there's ever any way that I can be helpful to you, Jeff Sand at Microsoft or at Jeff Sand at Twitter. Thanks for coming to Build.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And
Thank you.
And now, Nina, going to go back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, for stopping by and saying hi and welcoming everyone. So next on our agenda, we've got Patrick Thomas and Francois Smith. They're going to walk through a little bit of that Cloud Skills Challenge, but they actually have more in store for you than just Cloud Skills Challenge. So Patrick, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Thomas here with my colleague, Francois Smith. And as Nina mentioned, we're going to talk to you a little bit about some of the opportunities to engage with Microsoft throughout the year. Obviously, Build is a great event. It's exciting. There's a lot of great information. But our team on the developer audience team focused on the US, we have a lot of experiences to try to continue that momentum and engagement, not just at a point in time event, but something that you can consume all the time, anytime, every month, every week. So first, we're going to start with our source newsletter. This is not just an ordinary newsletter. This is something that is targeted specifically for developers. It's going to have technical content, links to relevant events, and product announcements and developer news. And you can think of this as, if you can only look at the top 10 headlines from Microsoft each month, that's really what we try to put in this newsletter. And the links to what we're sharing on how to sign up will be on each slide, but we're also going to put that in the Q&A. So don't feel the pressure to type fast or take a snip. We'll definitely share all these links right when we're done. Go to the next slide. Okay, that brings me to the online workshops. And Jeff mentioned the Learn TV, which is so awesome. I know this year our team has experimented a lot with online events. And what I want to share and talk a little bit about is a workshop series that we've been running throughout the year. This is Microsoft and industry experts delivering live hands-on events via the Teams class platform. The topics that we've released range from DevOps to AI to Kubernetes. We have a couple other series that I'll share that are coming up. These are available both live and on demand. And this is this 200 to 400 level content for the most part, has live Q&A. If you watch the on demand, you also have access to an alias to where if you get stuck or you need help, you can reach out and we can help you after the fact. And these are not all day sessions. They typically run for about 90 minutes once a week. And depending on the series, they may go 3 weeks, they go 4, they may go 5. These are really good events, really great speakers. And the next slide will give you a snapshot of what the experience looks like. One of the things that I want to emphasize here is it's not a typical training event with a lot of presentation and a little bit of lab. Think of this as very much more of a live coding event. You're going to have access to the content in a GitHub repo. You can follow along during the event, or you can do the labs after you watch the series. If you go back and you're searching on the on-demand, we've used AI to where you can put in a search term, go back and find the section of the video that you want to cover or you want to see. It's really cool. I think Matt on our team has done a fantastic job bringing in top talent, putting together a great experience. So I would encourage you to check these out. So in that same vein, if you go to the next one, I'm going to share what's coming next. So the next 2 workshops that we have is one on serverless that's starting May 28th. And the other one is on Power Platform, and that starts June 9th. And I know that I saw a note to us in the Q&A asking about the citizen developer. I think there's a lot of great things that have come on Power Platform. I would encourage you to check that out. It's sometimes those things are seen as for non-developers, but from what I've seen, there's a lot that you can leverage in that stack and really to help automate and bring people in and get them familiar. So check these out. Once again, I'll provide the links. And then the last event that I want to share is a new experiment on Mixer. So on May 27th, Matt's going to be hosting Contrast Security, doing a live coding event. And this event focuses on security tools for DevOps that won't slow your process down. And I anticipate that this will be the first of quite a few series that we have going on Mixer, but I would strongly encourage you to check these out. Once again, we will be sharing the links, and now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Francois to talk about the Cloud Skills Challenge.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And as sort of Jeff mentioned, I mean, Microsoft Learn, the platform is an amazing way of exploring and evaluating some of the capabilities that we have on the Azure platform, and not just on the Azure platform. If you're looking for specifics around M365 or Power Platform or Dynamics or Teams, that is readily available. It's a great platform that is that's free to use. It's self-paced. It has collections, which I'll touch on a little bit later. It's got learning paths. So it's really a great, open, flexible platform to learn as much as possible of what we have to offer from a cloud and an Azure platform perspective. What we've done in the US, which is pretty unique, is we've sort of we leverage Microsoft Learn, but we've built in a bit of engagement and excitement and a little bit of a compete around the learning experience. And we've created a really great, scalable, always-on platform where you can actually compete with some of your industry peers out there throughout the region. You know, we leverage the very specific learning paths that's available on Learn or collections. But you have ability to actually sort of compete outside of your organization, and that brings a little bit of a fun fact to it as well. We throw in you know, a little digital badge for you once you have completed the learning experience. And then another thing, we've worked very closely with our cloud advocates team, also on Jeff's side, is you know, if you've got some great cloud stories that you'd like represented and published, I think there's a great opportunity to actually leverage this today. I think we're running the submissions until the end of May. But if you have some great tech applications that run on Azure that you want to sort of highlight and showcase, please follow that link and do your submissions. Go to the next slide, Nina. So another thing I just want to mention again, I think something unique about the Learn platform and what we've also done with Cloud Skills Challenge in the US is really focus around we take you on a learning journey or a learning path. Now, if you're interested in migrating your class, your applications to the cloud, you want to learn more on cloud native, you want to do something specific on Teams, all of those learning paths or collections are available on our platform. There's a link to how to register and sign up, but it really gives you this holistic end-to-end experience of what is available out there today. So we encourage you to look at that, and obviously, you know, want you to sign up and experience these learning paths. If we go to the next slide. So a key call to action for us is 3 things we'd love you to do is register for our online webinars and events. As Patrick alluded to, these are always available today. There's some live upcoming sessions, and there's also some on-demand sessions that's available. Sign up as you leave, or right now, sign up for Cloud Skills Challenge. We have active challenges running this month. And again, post-built, this platform is still available, so still something that you can participate in. And then please stay connected, sign up for the developer newsletter, and we continually share good information and relevant content that you can use as yourselves within your organizations. I think with that, I am going to hand back to Nina.
Actually, sorry, Nina, I'm going to interrupt one more time. We have got another special guest, Brendan Burns, the founder of Kubernetes, is here with us today. Brendan, I'll go ahead and introduce you because I think you were probably the last person, or at least one of the last people who I shook hands with before the COVID isolation. I live a couple blocks away from your daughter's school. I was coming home from work, got off the bus. Yeah, I was like, hey, Brendan Burns. You looked at me like I was nuts. And then you very graciously let me introduce myself to you. And so welcome.
I had
hand
sanitizer in the car.
Good. You needed it, I'm sure. So glad to see you.
The irony is that day I overheard some of the kids being like, oh, I left my bag at school. If they cancel school, I won't get it back for months. And I was like, they're not going to cancel school. And like literally we got the mail that Sunday. So how times have changed.
So I guess my first question for you is, what's the coolest thing you've seen App build this year?
There's a couple things that I'm pretty excited about. I'm gonna, talk about my teams, I guess, a little bit. We got Arc for Kubernetes out to public preview, and so that's awesome from my perspective because it's one thing to build something you're excited about, but to get it to a place where anybody out there in the world can use it is really awesome. So I'm really excited about that. Similarly, we started sharing in a sneak peek yesterday evening some of the new ideas we have for a next iteration of a configuration language for Azure. ARM template plus, a move away from JSON. And that's it's just a super interesting area. Configuration languages is just a really interesting area because for me personally, because there's never been a good solution there, I don't think. I don't know that what we're coming up with is going to be the one true solution. I'm not sure there is a one true solution, but we're really excited, again, to start talking and start having that conversation with people because I think it's an area where there's a lot of opportunity to make really incredible improvements. So those are a couple things I'm personally excited about.
Thank you. Since we've been talking a lot about technical skills, how do you keep up with your technical skills? How do you keep the saw sharp?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like to build stuff. So I'm always I always have sort of a side project going on. Whether it's monitoring, I have a little solar system at my house, whether it's monitoring the data off the solar system or building other projects around the house. I have IoT temperature monitoring in various rooms and out in my shed and stuff like that. And when I do that, I try and use that as a font for learning. Because it forces you. If you actually have to build something, it forces you to actually learn how to use it. It's one thing to be like, I will read about this new programming language, but if you actually have to interface your Arduino chip to something, then you really have to learn the language. Or like CSS, I was complaining on Twitter a while back that style sheets still baffle me, and they still do, but a bunch of people sent me a bunch of resources about how to, better explain style sheets to me. And so I've spent some time actually trying to learn style sheets. So I built my first responsive style sheet so that it would change the size of an image depending on the size of the screen of the device that was looking. So that was a new thing that I learned recently.
That's totally cool, actually, that you learned that.
Yeah, I'd never done it before. I'd never done conditional style sheets before, and so it took me a lot of reading, but I got it going. So
not working at the presentation, Larry, very often.
No. I mean, I did it a long time ago, and the problem with keeping up on tech is that the stuff that's not your day job, and presentation layer is definitely not my day job. You'll go in and you learn something, and then you jump out, and then 5 years pass, and then you go in again. And so I was like, wait a minute, I'm still using jQuery. I should probably learn something other than jQuery. So stuff like that, where you rapidly realize that the thing you learned is way out of date. So
one more question for you, since we're also talking about community today. Talk a little bit about community and the contribution of the community in the development of Kubernetes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if there's one thing, and people often ask me, what's the thing that you're most proud of in this effort? And for a lot of it, I kind of feel like anybody could have done it. I feel like it was a situation and we had some insight, but not that tricky to take advantage of. The community is one of these things that I think is truly unique, and that we put a lot of effort into, a conscious, proactive effort into building a community that was helpful and also responsive to people, and just a real positive community. And that was a big effort, and I'm really happy about how it worked out, because when you turn around and you look at it, I think that's why it's such a lively place with such a vibrant ecosystem, is because of that community that we built. I don't think Kubernetes could possibly have been successful without all of the people who decided to take a risk on it and decided to help build it themselves.
Cool. Well, thanks a ton for stopping by. Really appreciate your time. Let me take a quick look to see if there's anything.
Nope. I think I was hoping for something from the audience, but we'll send it to you in email and get back to folks later if something else comes in. Thanks a ton for your time.
Sure.
And
I'll stick around on the Q&A too.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
Well, back over to you, Nina.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Brendan, for popping by. So our next session, I'm super excited to welcome Ed Mullen, Jared Rhodes, and Ryan Heerwagen. These are Meetup community leaders that are part of the Azure Tech communities. And so we have about 15 minutes or so to have a conversation with them on what they're seeing lately. But before we get into it, I've got a couple of questions for you, Ed and Ryan. You can pick though. So I'm going to give you 2 questions. You can answer one or both or however you like. So what is one thing that most people don't know about you? That's the first option. Or you can tell us how many browser tabs do you have open right now? So why don't we start off with Ed and then we'll go with Ryan. Hey, Ed.
How's it going?
Good.
So I am one of those people that has a bazillion browser tabs open, and sometimes I have more than one browser going on. So that usually occurs until I have to reboot my machine, and then it kind of like starts all over again.
And how about you, Ryan?
So I'm going to go with the exact same browser question. And like Ed, it's this whole pattern where I accumulate browser tabs more and more over time. It doesn't wait until my machine shuts down though. At some point I go like, oh man, there's too many. I have too many thoughts. I need to purge it down. And so I'll go through a big purge, get it down manageable, and then eventually just explode up again. And it's just a cycle throughout the day.
That's something that I can definitely relate to. So Ed and Ryan, we've been corresponding over the past month or so because you all have been participating in the Cloud Skills Challenge for your Meetup groups. Maybe you could talk about what observations have you been seeing in the past few months in terms of shifting from in-person Meetup meetings to going online. For example, do you see more engagement and more connection, or maybe do you feel that folks, after a long day of being in front of their computer and going on another call is the last thing they want to do? So maybe we'll start with you, Ryan, to share a little bit about what you've been seeing, and then we'll go to Ed.
Okay, sure. So what I've been seeing in terms of my Meetup is that the number of attendees has gone down a little bit. I'm not sure if this is like a convenience thing, like a lot of people might plan it after work, or if it's just that they like socializing in person more than through the web, but it's gone down a bit, especially at first. It's been picking up a little bit after we've been sort of, isolated for a while. And I think that's just because people are getting a little bit lonelier. So more willing to reach out.
And what do you think, Ed?
So my user group has been going on for a long time, and there's like a real social aspect to it. Kind of like the old share pints, talk technology, drink a beer thing. So what happened, I had resisted going online or streaming for years because I'm like, if we stream, people are not going to come to the real world meeting. So when we did our first virtual one last month, I was pleasantly surprised that not only did we have more people than ever, they were very engaged. And, it got to the end of the timeline and I'm like, guys, I got to shut this down. They would have been there talking for the rest of the night, just like when we would have a real world meeting, a whole crew would go to the bar across the street and continue the conversation. And funny thing, a half an hour after this presentation is over, will be Balto MSDN for this month. So look it up on Meetup, and if you send me a request real quick, I'll send you the Teams meeting. We have 2 great Microsoft speakers presenting. Jeff Sanders is one of them.
Right now, working virtually is really a new normal for most of us that have a desk job that have the luxury of working remotely. What do you think about in terms of seeing virtual communities evolve in the next 5 years? Do you see this as something where once everything calms down, people enjoy going back in person, and maybe the virtual aspect will kind of lower a little bit, or you feel like now this kind of virtual meetup communities is here to stay? So Ed, what do you think?
I think it's here to stay. Like I said, I resisted it, and then we had people on our meetup that were members who'd moved to other states. I think the ability to get like national speakers, but I think the real challenge is to create a teleconferencing environment where it really feels like the people that are virtually attending are in the room. I think you're going to see hybrid environments, but you do not want those virtual attendees to feel like second-class citizens like often people did in the past on teleconferences. So I think there's a very exciting technical challenge for creating meetings that are hybrid, real world, virtual world collaborations.
Thanks, Ed. And how about you, Ryan? Thoughts about where this will go in the next 3-5 years?
So I think that I largely agree with Ed. So there's definitely a case in place for online communities to develop and flourish. I do think that a lot of people will also enjoy the interactions they have in person, and it might be very hard to actually get that right interaction model where people can actually attend online and have the same experiences in person. So for my meetup, historically we've had a very long networking period where people just interact in a free-form manner. It's a little bit harder to do that, at least right now with teleconferencing, but it might get easier over time as these channels start to and continue to evolve.
And we actually have a question here from our viewers. How do the community leaders deal with engaging presenters and/or content for their meetup? Maybe you can start with that, Ryan. I'll read it again. How do the community leaders deal with engaging presenters and/or content for their meetup?
So what I do in order to get presenters and content for my meetup is I usually just ask around and try to build connections with the people around me. What I found is that most people who are technology experts or who are, the face of some major software or paradigm, they're usually very willing to share their information so long as you're very transparent with them and are willing to work with them in terms of a venue and making sure that they have a good audience that they can actually engage and talk to. But it's really just a matter of, finding something that you're interested in, finding someone who's in the area who can actually act as an expert in it, and just trying to work out the details of, getting that meeting up the ground.
And how about you, Ed?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I spend a lot of time listening and polling my members, letting them drive the content, and then I go search for an expert. And I really, user groups used to be more show and tell in the past, like when I was involved in them in the 80s and 90s. So I try to get, like, we have some major corporations like Pandora Jewelry and Under Armour and Philips Healthcare headquartered here in Baltimore. And I'm like, bring your project and show it and talk about like what you are doing as opposed to some stock presentation on a technology or a slide deck that, looks like $1 million. I'd rather have somebody talk about how they implemented something in a real world environment in the local area.
We've actually got a couple more comments from the audience. They had some really good comments here. So one of them is, I had just started going to meetups before the quarantine started. Sadly, I have yet to see any announcement of virtual meetings, sad face. And we have a question around, what's the best way to start a new local meetup when one does not yet exist, especially in our current times where face-to-face isn't allowed? And this is a really great question because, Ed, you're the organizer for Ball2 MSDN, has almost 1,000 members, and Ryan, you're the leader for Dallas Business Intelligence Meetup, and you got 2,000, almost 3,000 members. I'm sure that didn't happen overnight. So for people that are thinking about creating their own community that they see an opportunity for, what are your thoughts and advice for how they can get started? Maybe we'll start with Ryan this time.
Okay, sure. So based on my experience, what you really want to do is you want to start off with what you consider a minimum viable meeting, like something basic that you can actually see, get a feel for what works and see if you can get some people attending. What really gets up a meetup going is finding sort of a core group of people who they like what they see and they're willing to come back again and again. And as long as you have some people who they really like your concept, they really like your model, your mix, and they are willing to, keep on showing up, you'll find more and more people trying to join your group as well, and your meetup will gradually expand. But it's just, there's a lot of trial and error involved, and there's going to be a few meetings where you might unfortunately be the only one to show up unless you're able to ask your friends to come along with you. But as long as you're willing to be brave and put up with that, then it's just, trying this until eventually people make it a habit.
Yeah, I tend to think the same way. I'm actually involved with several user groups, and some people are like looking at quantity of attendees or a certain level of person there. We have had great meetings with like 12 people that were highly engaged, and a lot of times like national speakers like to come to Ball2 MSDN because the level of questioning and knowledge about existing products is so high. They ask really tough questions and really business oriented as well as technical, and that drives attendance because they just want to be around one another. Now that said, it sort of becomes like an echo chamber of like-minded thoughts, and one of my friends is like, you run a very female unfriendly meetup, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, and she was spot on. She's like, you run it in bars, you don't worry about parking, all these different things. And one of the things that I really look for with these virtual meetups is being able to attract a more gender diverse crowd to my particular meetups, because I'd almost given up on it. I'm like, it's not like we're programmers, but just by the nature of the locations and the time of night and the stuff like that, it was not drawing a diverse, it drew a racially diverse crowd, not a gender diverse crowd. And it tended to be very passionate, argumentative, sort of confrontational discussions about technology, which not everybody's comfortable with. So I think the virtual environments will actually give us an opportunity to expand our audience.
Yeah, programmer, that's actually the first I've heard of that. And maybe, let's see, we have another question here. If meetups start becoming more and more virtual, do you think we'll see something that isn't just local, or would it still be preferred to be local users? Ed, do you want to take that one?
Well, Ryan touched on it earlier. I believe that as soon as it is safe, people really want to be, like our meetups, they wanted to be in the same space. Because if you're a technologist, you can be involved in like online communities very easily. What is difficult to do is find somebody you can sit across a table from and share a drink or a coffee and talk about things with. So I think people will become running back. But the challenge for me is I really want to figure out a way to have the best of both worlds, to have that immersive virtual environment along with the face-to-face. I'm not sure I'm shaking hands anymore, but I'd like to be in the same physical space with people again. And it seems like my members do as well, because they mentioned that.
Yeah. And Ed, I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do know that I think you mentioned you live on a farm. So maybe being in this quarantine is actually relatively.
Yeah, I do not complain too much. People ask me about it, and I'm just like, well, you know, when I get bored, I go dirt biking, check on the chickens. I'm gonna have the best garden ever this year. So not that I am happy about pandemics, but I'm feeling like a genius for buying this farm.
Well, fresh air is always welcomed. And Ryan, do you have any other thought with that question around if meetups start becoming more and more virtual? Do you think we'll see something that isn't just local, or would it still be preferred to be local users?
So I think that like online communities have existed and have existed for a long time. However, I think there's going to be still a strong bias towards doing something that's local. With a local community, there's this whole, you know, paradox of choice type thing, right? If you give someone, you know, 5 choices, they know what to do, they know what to pick. If you give someone 500 choices, then they get really confused and they might get so befuddled that it becomes really hard for them to pick the one right option for them. And I think locality is one of those criteria that people use to like identify what they want to go with. Additionally, from my experience as well, people like this face-to-face interaction, especially since a lot of the benefit of a meetup is not really that you have a presenter who's the smartest guy in the room. It's that you have, you know, a bunch of smart people who are all talking with each other and who can all share their perspectives. So that way, if you're in a different spot in the industry, or you're trying to enter the industry, or, you know, you have questions about where to go with the changing environment, you have someone you can talk to who can give their perspective and add it to your perspective. And that's a lot harder to do online without going into like a forum or asking questions on like a Stack Exchange or something else.
The other part about local is that there's a networking and a hiring component. Yes, there's a lot of remote workers and virtual workers, but one of the big pluses of a local meetup was hiring managers could scout for talent, people looking for positions or passively looking could connect with other people. And when you sit there and you have a conversation about a technology in a casual environment, it's like the most amazing interview ever, because you don't have the stress. And, you know, I talk about it like sports, like a scout, like on my bench chart of the next, you know, 5 people I'd love to hire for my team that I met through these events.
Well, thank you both, Ed and Ryan, so much for sharing your thoughts. We would love to continue the question through chat. I think Ed and Ryan, you're probably available to stick on a little bit longer. So I invite the audience to continue to send their great questions to you. Really appreciate you joining with us today, Ryan and Ed. Before I go into our next segment, I did want to address that for any meetups out there that are covering Microsoft technology, especially Azure, we have something called Azure Tech Communities. It's basically Microsoft providing a program to help meetup organizers in terms of, I would say there's 3 main value propositions. One is connecting to a dedicated developer, PMM like myself. We have one across all of our subsidiaries to help you not only find content that you may be looking for to present, but also help connect with Microsoft speakers who are interested, willing, excited to share their knowledge with you. The Azure Tech Community also will support the Meetup subscription for the Meetup organizer. So that's also something nice. If you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to our team at usdev@microsoft.com and I can send you some more information. All right, so with that, we're gonna go into our next agenda topic, which is Communities Hack for Health. We've got Molly McCarthy and Jeff Baddick, both from Microsoft, joining us today. And so for the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about a really innovative hackathon that has happened just this past weekend. And it is a collaboration between 4 organizations: Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, SONSIEL, which is a society for nurses and entrepreneurs, innovators, leaders, as well as DevUp, which is a local nonprofit developer organization. In a span of a weekend, the teams have really come together and produced some really inspiring and great results. So I'd love to learn more about, maybe Molly can kick this off. How did this hackathon come about? Maybe giving a little bit more context there for our viewers.
Sure. Thanks, Nina. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Great. So, as Nina indicated, 2020 was designated by the World Health Organization as Year of the Nurse and Midwife. And little did we know that we would really need to step up this year and rise to the occasion in light of the coronavirus. So going into 2020, really had a plan around how to elevate the voice of nurses. And my personal mission has been, since I've been involved in design and development of tech solutions for over 20 years for healthcare, really getting more nurses, more clinicians involved with the design and development of solutions. I think it's critical to have their input because ultimately, you know, they're closest to the patients. And so we had talked about this, and we were thinking about supporting an in-person hackathon in September. And then in April, as Nina indicated, SONSIEL, which is a group that I'm actually a member of, came to me and said, hey, can we do a hackathon? We want to bring together nurses and IT professionals and engineers with the Microsoft community, in the Microsoft community, to really think about problem areas that coronavirus has exposed. So I know Jeff's going to talk about the 5 different areas we tackled, but that's really how it came about. And I have to say, and kudos to Jeff and his team, within a matter of 4 weeks, we were up and running, and it took place this past weekend. I can say from my own experience that there were many moments of, are we going to actually make this happen? But I think, you know, our ultimate goal is to marry the clinicians with the developers so that solutions are being created together.
Thanks, Molly. Jeff, maybe you can take us through a little bit more of, I understand there were 5 challenge areas. Maybe you can talk through a little bit about that and the technology.
Sure, yeah, thanks. And Molly's right, it was a big partnership. And so I thank her, I thank all the other people involved in this. This is, it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of trust. I think there was a lot of people nervous about hackathons. And so the challenges we came up with were a way to guide. It was just one of many things we tried to do to provide some guidance, but they're vague on purpose. And so the first one was remote patient monitoring in acute settings. The second one was remote patient monitoring in home settings. Or sorry, got a second one there. The third one was patient transfer and handoffs. Then we did more of a catch-all for data and reporting. And finally, we kind of added this a little bit later, but this idea of resiliency and self-care became a big topic around how do we really help nurses, especially think about the mental strain that this pandemic is putting on them and others potentially. So those are our 5 challenge areas.
That's a great overview, and I'm showing on the slide a summary of that.
Yeah, those are our winners. Yep.
Yeah, and Jeff, could you talk a little bit more about just how readily available technology is nowadays, especially some of them can be used with a free trial. Just talking about the tools that we have available to really piece things together and make a MVP.
Yeah, sure. And we can talk about MVPs here too. I think that what we've seen really in industry is and across many industries is an increased demand for technology to solve problems, right? And nowhere is that more obvious during this pandemic than in nursing. And so as this technology demand has grown, unfortunately, the number of technologists, the supply of that knowledge has not grown. That's created an opportunity. It's created an opportunity in two ways. One, we have more citizen developers than ever. More people, like many of the nurses that we worked with, who continue to impress me with how they were ready to dive in and learn technology that might be super foreign and complicated. But what we saw there was this idea of citizen developers really helping solve their own problems, right? Like they were using this new skill that they were learning real time to tackle stuff that they cared about the most. And that applies in other industries, but again, very real in nursing right now. The other piece of that the other opportunity that came in here is in companies like Microsoft have done a great job of looking at how do I enable those citizen developers. And so lots of free trials, as you mentioned, Nina, around things like Power BI and Power Apps that allow you to get in there and build apps and learn a ton about what you might be able to do. Maybe it's a prototype that you can, maybe get funding for if you're going on the startup path, or maybe you take back to your employer and say, look, I've already gotten this far. I just needed a little more IT depth or help to take it to the next level. Or maybe it's just already working, as we saw with one of our teams. Like they're moved into production a day after the event, which is awesome. But those are some of those free trial options. But there's tons of free options too. Learn.microsoft.com is a great one. All of my architects, my 400-level architects that work for me, they all use that. It's a great way for them to train and learn. And there's a lot of VMs and other lab environments there that allow you to get in and learn and get hands-on, which is where you really learn, I would argue. And they're building things out in those lab environments. They cost them nothing, right? We're spinning them up dynamically using cloud and then providing those to whoever is interested in using those things. So those are a couple of options. But again, there's a bunch of either really cheap, really inexpensive, or free things, even in Azure. So spinning up a function, an Azure function is a great example. You get so many calls to that before it charges you a part of a penny. And so there's a lot of capabilities that I'd love to build more awareness around, but they exist, and it's a great way for people to get started and on their own technology journey.
Thanks, Jeff. I echo that. I joined the kickoff for the hackathon and listened into some of the pitches, and it's just been a really inspiring experience where we see technologists alongside with nurses who are volunteering their time away from all the things that they need to work on and just coming together to find solutions. And you'll hear some of the nurses say, gosh, this is my first time, using Teams, first time sitting down on the computer, and just help me out. It's just really great to see everyone sharing and learning with each other.
Yeah, it was great to see one of the questions I got early on when I said, hey, team, I need to get you a GitHub account so you can set up, find a place for your source code, your documentation, whatever. And how many questions were back were, what's a GitHub? But again, it's a free resource out there, right? And now there's a whole ton of nurses that didn't know anything about it just days ago are now diving into it and checking in source code and checking in documents and writing work down. It's pretty awesome.
And Molly, I know you were one of the judges for the different teams that were presenting their solution. Maybe you can comment on, were there a few ideas that were really unique, kind of tugs at your heartstring maybe? And also, do you have some advice around how do you effectively pitch something, whether somebody is trying to pitch a future hackathon or someone is trying to pitch a new technology to their employer? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts around that.
So I think, first of all, at the end of the day, at the end of the weekend, I think we had around 31 different hack groups, teams. So lots of great ideas. We had over the weekend 489 active users on Teams throughout the weekend. As you mentioned, I was a judge along with 24 other of my colleagues throughout the industry. We had 30 mentors, many of them from Microsoft. So just a huge turnout for this. I think our goal was to have about 250, so nearly doubled that. You know, I think the idea is I don't want to hone in on anyone. I know that you had put up before some of the first winners and then the runners up. I think for me, I personally was in the acute care patient monitoring area. I spent, before my time at Microsoft, I worked for Philips and I worked in the patient monitoring section. So I felt like that was probably an area that I could probably knew the most about. So within that area, there were there were actually 3 projects that stood out to me that I actually, when I judged them, they kind of all came out with the same score for different reasons. The second runner-up was ICU helper, and that was, you know, thinking about looking at real-time trends, et cetera. That's something that wasn't as innovative as the winner, but something that's needed not just during COVID-19, but really throughout healthcare, within the healthcare setting. And if you think about it, when you have these highly infectious patients, regardless of what they have, the ability to remotely monitor them, whether that's from a tele-ICU or the huddle area, is so critical, because you want to avoid going in there multiple times, or even just patient communication. So that was one. And then the other one was something called Here Now. And I think, and Jeff can talk a little bit more about this, they don't necessarily have, they're not as far along by any means as ICU helper, but the pitch that they gave, and to your point of tugging at the heartstrings, I mean, that did it. It was essentially, how do you give the patient a voice in situations like this where they're extremely isolated with the family, et cetera. And that was called Here Now, and it's a patient connect. And the pitch, you asked a question about pitching, and I've done a lot of different judging at different competitions, including South by Southwest. So I've seen a lot of different pitches, as well as actually at HIMSS last year. And I think, from my perspective, doing the pitch is a separate skill set than actually building and creating the prototype and technology. So, when I think about, with this particular team, the person who did the pitch, I mean, she was very good in terms of public speaking and getting up in front and actually doing it on Teams. So thinking about that versus actually creating the solution, I think, coming out, being clear, succinct, what's the problem? Who are the competitors? Can I show a demo? Who is on my team? What are their skill sets? And really keeping a very crisp slide deck, I think, is really important. Obviously, visually pleasing, free from errors. There's a whole lot of information out there on pitch coaching, but that's just that could be a specialty, I think, within the hackathon itself. We did have a pre-pitch coaching session for everyone on the Saturday afternoon, so they had the ability, they were working with mentors throughout the weekend, and then had the ability to actually do the pitch. And then they did the real pitch on Sunday. And just the other project that I don't want to forget to mention, and Jeff, you can talk more about this, is the Emerge project.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So this one was impressive. One of the things we were looking at early on as an organization of sponsors here, if you will, was this idea of getting to MVP, right? We really wanted to solve some problems, and it's asking a lot of people who are new to technology, who haven't worked together before, to ideate and then build within a very short amount of time, right? But this Emerge team, who included 2 nurses I'll call out here, so, and I hope I don't butcher your names too much, but Claire Drought and Han Chu were 2 of the nurses that were working on this. And then from our side, Bill Pritchett was one of our cloud solution architects that was mentoring them. And they did a lot of the work, for sure, but these were, a group of people that came together and helped build a whole, there's a web app, that allows nurses to register. And the whole point of it is to raise awareness around the lack of capability in getting information to nurses, right? So really helping them understand and stay up to date so they can be effective in what they're doing. And so it's a great solution that came together super fast. And like I said, they were going to production the day after the hack. That's incredible. That's exactly the MVP goal that I was definitely passionate about helping getting some of our teams to. So it was a great job.
That is incredible. And we've got some great questions from the audience, so maybe we'll take no more than 5 minutes to wrap up this session. One of the question is, my company, Slalom, is doing a hackathon. We do it every year, and it's hacking for social good. We'll be donating time, resources to different nonprofit organizations for free, obviously. The question is, do you have a contact to any particular organization that you know could use some help?
I'll sort of go here too. I want to hear what Molly thinks, but to me, what I've done, I've seen this a lot in our community here in St. Louis as well. I've seen it in Kansas City with a bunch of people that work there in the community, dev community. There's a lot out there that need help, and it can be hard to track them down. We've done things with United Way. We've gone to some of our favorite, local charities and just asked them, like, hey, if we could give you X number of technologists for X amount of time, do you have something we could, put our hands around and help you actually do? And these, we don't want to do science projects. That's not helpful. And a lot of times our employers as technologists don't allow us to work on stuff that's not under a certain open source license, right? We're kind of constrained by moonlighting policies and the like. And so you got to be sensitive to that. But if we can do something that is truly for a greater good, often open source that lots of people can benefit from it, those are the kinds of things that I typically ask of not-for-profits that we try to go work with. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I know it's not very specific, but.
Another question is, thinking about remote patient monitoring with HIPAA regulations in the US, are the devices able to communicate via TLS, or were there other additional approaches to security?
So there were a lot of additional approaches. I'll answer the Microsoft, I'm not sure exactly this is the question, but a lot of as we exposed the nurses to Teams, right, because that's what we did our entire hack within the Teams environment. As they learned more about that, there were questions like, hey, can I just use this as part of my solution? So I'm making an assumption that's what this question's around. And HIPAA compliance is a complicated topic, but Teams is HIPAA compliant. Again, you can abuse that, so it doesn't protect you entirely. You have to do something smart on your end. You can't just chat to the world, PHI, health record data. But it is on the back end, and to get into the weeds a little bit, it's protected by what we call mutual TLS, so MTLS, if people are familiar with that. So there's some protections of security there.
And Jeff, a follow-up to that as a second question, did any of the solutions utilize Azure for health? If so, how was the platform leveraged?
So yes and no. So we tried to use the healthcare bot, and the lab we had didn't quite have that ready, so we couldn't use that. So we did a lot to simulate what that healthcare bot did. So that's one example. There was a lot of people that wanted to build bots, which is one of my favorite topics. So that's great. I think that's something that we don't explore enough of, but the pandemic has really shined a light on it, and that's awesome. And then we also saw a lot around, Teams. I mentioned that. So there's a lot of efforts around Teams and its health capabilities. And then I think the other one was probably, and I wouldn't say we got as far with these because it's a complicated topic, but there was a lot of discussions around FHIR and using that new regulatory API standard as a way to communicate with on-prem or cloud health records and use that to power intelligence of the app that they were working on. So, but that's a complicated topic for sure.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Molly. Hey, I forgot to ask the icebreaker question for you two. So the question is, what is your favorite drink, especially now that it's in the afternoon for almost all of us? A nice drink after this to sound good.
It's 5 o'clock for me, Jeff. So I'm just going to say a spicy margarita on the rocks with salt. It's got to have fresh lime, fresh everything.
Nice. And so when we get together, we'll have to share because I'm a tequila guy too. So
okay, great.
I usually just do it straight, but I will absolutely do whatever you want to do.
Low sugar though.
There you go.
Well, thank you again, Jeff and Molly, for your time with us today, and also just all the efforts you put behind that Nurse Hack for Health event. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work behind the scenes to put it together on top of your day job. So we all thank you for the efforts that you put in it.
Yeah, thanks to you too, Nina.
Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. So next up, I'm super excited to introduce you to 4 Microsoft MVPs in this next panel around Tech for Good. We've got Andy Mallon, Heather Downing, Fabian Williams, and Jay Harris on the line joining us. And I'd love to just hear a little bit of each of your story around the Tech for Good initiative. So let me go ahead and introduce each of you a little bit here. So Andy started his own event for LGBTQ attendees at a past summit, and he has added a charitable twist to it where he has raised $3,000 in a matter of just 2 weeks to $15,000 for the Trevor Project for the second year. Andy, that's a really incredible story. Would you mind kind of going through and telling us a little bit more about that? Oh, we've got you on mute.
I knew I'd be the one that would do that. So Past Summit is a SQL Server conference that happens each year. Usually it's out in Seattle. And the first year I went to it was 2016. Or sorry, the first year I went to it was 2015. And then the next year, when I was planning in 2016 to go, I was thinking about what I was going to do and what friends I was going to see while I was out there, and all of the events that are happening. And I realized then in hindsight that the prior year there was no LGBTQ meetup of any sort. There wasn't an official one. I asked around to some of my friends, and there wasn't like a night where people go to the gay neighborhood, which is right next to the conference center. So I had the idea to pull together something, and my first thought was, since I only had a couple of weeks before the conference, just see if we could get together for drinks, go to a restaurant or a bar and get together. And I had so many people reply when asked on Twitter that I ended up booking a private room at a bar just up the hill in the gay neighborhood. And I decided that since I had a minimum that we had to spend at the restaurant, if I ended up spending money for a room that nobody came to at the event, I should at least try to do a fundraiser too, so that if I was going to pay out of pocket if we didn't meet the minimum, at least I'd feel like we had still done something in having a fundraiser. So I put together a fundraiser for the Trevor Project, who provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention for LGBTQ young people. And that first year, in those first 2 weeks, we raised $3,000 for Trevor Project, which was super exciting. So then the next year that I went, which was actually 2 years later, I did the same thing. I put a little bit more thought and effort, knowing that it had been well received. And then that second year, with a little bit more than 2 weeks planning, we ended up raising $15,000 for Trevor Project, which was insane as far as I was concerned. And at the event, I booked the same private room, and we filled the room, and we ended up having to take over the main bar in the main space too, because so many people had turned out.
That's amazing. And it seems like the takeaway there is it's okay to start something small, right? I think you mentioned when we were talking, you don't have to solve world hunger, just take small steps towards something that you're passionate about, that you want to solve for.
Yeah. And for me, I figured I was willing to put something together, and kind of what the one of the prior segments talking about starting a user group. Be okay with starting a user group, and maybe sometimes nobody shows up, or sometimes you have a bad night. I figured I'd put together this event, and maybe it would be a small group. Maybe it would just be me and my friends going out to dinner, and that's okay.
And Andy, we have a question from the audience. Someone wants to know if that's Shreddy on Andy's shirt.
Yeah, this is Thready. So Thready is a dinosaur. He works at Microsoft. If you go to Twitter, Thready is on Twitter as Thready Rex. And I actually have another, there's a blue dinosaur in the background there that's Thready's cousin. Thready is, that's Query, Thready's cousin. And he's also on Twitter, and he's Query T-SQL Rex.
That's awesome. I learn something new every day. Thanks, Andy. I'd like to next ask Heather to share a little bit about her experience. Heather helped organize a 24-hour free conference called Dev Around the Sun, and it features speakers that are well known in the tech industry around the globe. The event also had a fundraising component of it for the Direct Relief COVID-19 Victim Fund. And what was really cool about it is that it was not only live stream on Twitch, but YouTube and Mixer as well. So really taking advantage of all of our live streaming technology available. There's been 71,000 unique viewers, $53,000 raised for the pandemic relief. Really incredible results there. Heather, would you like to share a little bit more about your story? Oh, I think we're on mute as well. Let's see. There's a little mute button under your video, if you're able to see that. There we go.
You've got to love multiple settings when it comes to this kind of stuff. All right. Thank you so much for introing. This all started because I was talking to Claire Novotny, who is the chair of the .NET Foundation, about how there's so much focus on things that are unknown and kind of scare us. And when it comes to being technologists, we could actually do something about this collectively as a community. So as somebody in the technology space, I've spoken all over the world now, and that is, of course, a component that we're not doing at the moment since a lot of us are staying home. But I kind of wanted to see if maybe there was a chance that we could help if we still have jobs and we still have, such a blessing that we don't have to worry about that so much. Maybe we can chip in a little bit to help the people that are struggling now. And we decided to join with Direct Relief for that. If you've ever done a fundraiser or a donation before, you probably heard of them. They're very good in terms of their score when it comes to how they manage the money and how quickly they get it out to the people in need. So instead of managing money ourselves to do something like this, we decided to, use the tools that are available so we could quickly get something off the ground. We only had a 6-week runway from the time we started to do this to get this going. And the concept was, let's do this for 24 hours straight to do a conference. So of course, Microsoft has been doing this now too, but it's different when it's all community driven, completely. So somehow we managed to get people from 14 different countries to pledge half an hour of their time to be a speaker. We had over 40 speakers from those locations. A large percentage actually was people of color, women, and it was amazing the different tech communities they were also representing. 15 different areas, from people who are into data science to programming languages themselves, that were willing to give their time. Let me tell you, when we were trying to decide how to manage it, we decided to go with Tiltify, because Tiltify has an API that we could pull in to do real-time amounts as donations were coming in. We always thought that was really cool, and as developers, it'd be nice to put together kind of, a graph across the top that shows and kind of motivates people. Think about an old-fashioned telethon, back in the day when you had a host that was talking to you and asking you to donate. We also had to invite people to be event hosts with us too. We had 14 people that would give up their time in between the speakers to do Q&A with the audience over Twitch, to talk to them and give them shout outs whenever they donated. We also worked with 7 different very talented engineers from the Live Coders group on Twitch who were willing to be our exactly what you have your own team doing right now behind the scenes, is deciding, you know, which videos feed to feature, plugging things into OBS so that we had a nice border and our names next to it. It was kind of an incredible amount of functionality that all had to come together in just 6 weeks. So it was pretty amazing to see some of the viewership spike to almost 5,000 people watching when Venkat was speaking live. That was really impactful to us, and we've gotten an outpouring of, wow, I wish you guys would do this again in the future. But remember, none of us are professional at this. We definitely had organizers that have history with doing, you know, maybe themselves they are speakers, but we don't do this professionally. So if a bunch of us from all over the place, you know, there were about 10 organizers, can pull this off in 6 weeks, I think my takeaway from that was that it is possible if you have something that you're really passionate about and you find like-minded people to make impacts in a short term, almost immediately.
Absolutely. 6 weeks is not a lot of time, that's for sure, especially when everyone is figuring things out for the first time. So that's amazing. Thank you, Heather. Next, let's go to Fabian. Fabian created a COVID-19 data visualization using Power BI and cognitive services to get some sentiment analysis. Fabian, what were your thought process in terms of starting that project? And I'd love to hear some of your story around there.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? I want to make sure before I'm speaking into dead air. You can hear me okay?
You sound great.
All right, awesome. So the origin story for me is similar to a lot of the folks here today, in that I had a conversation with 2 mates, Bill Baer and Chris Givens, and we're talking about just really what the new normal will look like post COVID-19 relative to speaking at conferences. You know, we speak a lot of conferences, and in-person conferences we felt is going to be affected, you know, once we come out on the other side from COVID-19. And that spurred a lot of thought, you know, in terms of not just, you know, conferences per se, but also in terms of, you know, workplace and just, you know, adults and kids alike. Myself, I live here in Maryland, just down the street from Ed Mullins, actually. And, you know, we just recently came out of a shelter in place. And before we came out of the shelter in place, I typically work from home. But work from home means completely different thing when you have kids at home as well. So I have a 8-year-old who's, you know, in 7th grade. Sorry, I have a 12-year-old who's in 7th grade. And I also have one that's in kindergarten. And while the 7th grader is self-managing, you know, she can just basically go. The kindergarten who just started school, you know, that's a new experience for her. It's a little bit different. And for me, there was an anxiety level that came about from that, in terms of, yeah, I can do meetings from home, but meetings plus schoolwork, you know, 7th grade schoolwork plus kindergarten schoolwork, you know, that was a little bit different. And for them, not being able to run about the place and do things was different as well. So the approach was that, you know, would it be nice to figure out, even me individually, how other people is faring with this? You know, are people as stressed or as anxious as this? How are companies going to look at this as well? You know, how are my employees doing at home? Because, you know, you could be in the office and you can look over the cube or look inside someone's office and say, hey, you're doing well, okay. But if people are at home, you don't necessarily have that. So being a dev, you know, I said, you know what, let's think about this. And I wanted to use Microsoft technologies as well and see if I could take something from idea to out the door relatively quickly. So I sat down and coded using ASP.NET Core, a web form to ingest information. And we also basically ask 8 questions. A few closed questions, yes or no, some open-ended as well, just to get feedback, because it's one thing to maybe basically troll Twitter or troll Facebook to see what people are saying, but asking targeted question, I think, was very important. So, taking that question in, I wrote some Azure functions as well to basically do some of that business logic, and persisted it into Cosmos DB. And I also took some of those questions and put it inside Azure Cognitive Services to basically get to, telemetry on in terms of, what people are saying and what people are thinking. I was fortunate to know a data scientist. Her name's Katie Coriel. I'm great at writing software, but I am terrible at doing visualization. And she was able to take the lead from there and move it into Power BI. And from that, we had running tallies to show day to day, week to week, what people are thinking. And the benefit that I got from it was to be able to see that you're not alone. Other people are thinking the same way. And you can actually see trends, when the news go up or the news go down, you can actually see people responding differently. And I think that would provide a great feedback loop into what's going on.
Thank you, Fabian. And definitely understand the challenge of working with kids. I have shipped off my 3-year-old to his grandma's home for this next, for this 2 hours, so that make sure that I don't have anybody interrupting or crazy noises behind. So hats off to all of the parents out there, everyone who is a caretaker for someone, of giving your best during this time. And last but not least, let's go to Jay Harris. Jay is helping to make the world a better place through something called GiveCamp. It is a 48-hour hackathon specifically for charities. And one analogy, Jay, you like to use is think of it as a Habitat for Humanity, except it's got more of a technology twist. So Jay, would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nina. GiveCamp, it's really a movement of weekend-long coding for charity events focused on helping local communities. There are many hackathons that help larger causes and have a very wide net that might help organizations all over the country, and many organizations all over the country might be able to use whatever project or application that's created by the hackathon. But GiveCamp spins that into much more of a local focus, helping out the small or emerging nonprofits that help our local neighborhoods and our local communities, wherever we happen to be. So for these smaller organizations, or new organizations, the custom software they might need, or even just a website, is frequently cost prohibitive. The little bit of money that the local animal shelter gets is spent on dog food and cat litter, and not on buying a new website. So the website is often created by the founder, sitting next to a WordPress for Dummies book. And though they're great for kicking things off, they lack that professional polish to really boost the marketing and success of these organizations. So that's really where GiveCamp comes in. It's an opportunity for partnering together local nonprofits with local technologists, local volunteering technologists to meet the needs of these local charities. It's most commonly a website or a small application, but the project can really be anything, whatever the needs are of that nonprofit, as long as it follows one rule. It has to be completed in a weekend. This is not an ongoing cause where some other GiveCamp event in another city can pick up the torch of that single website. Everything must be self-contained to the single weekend. But the technologists can be all walks of IT-based life, developers, DBAs, designers, all the way through SEO and social media experts, and from all different levels of skill, from the veteran, that's the retiree even, that's been doing this for many decades, all the way through. We've had middle school students that have made great contributions into GiveCamp. So yes, this this technical tsunami of goodwill from GiveCamp. It's a great opportunity for helping out our local neighborhoods, these nonprofits that already do so much for our local communities. We've had 157 GiveCamps so far. Original concept came from Chris Koenig, who at the time, back in 2007, he was a developer evangelist for Microsoft. And the very first GiveCamp that came to be was Ann Arbor GiveCamp back in July of 2008. But there have been 157 since, all over the United States and a few internationally as well. And we have additional GiveCamps are scheduled for later this year in Seattle, in Ann Arbor, in the Northwest Arkansas metro area. There's also one scheduled for early 2021 in Memphis, Tennessee, and new ones are popping up all the time, especially as we navigate how this is going to work out through the current global pandemic. But yeah, certainly anybody can go to givecamp.org if they're interested in learning more about GiveCamp, if they want to volunteer for GiveCamp, even if they're interested in bringing GiveCamp to their own city or starting a GiveCamp event, organizing a GiveCamp event in their own city.
That's wonderful, Jay. And you kind of answered the question for me. I had a question to everyone, starting with Jay, is just how do you recommend that the audience can participate if they're interested? Some of these, like the GiveCamp, is something that is happening. I think you mentioned that they can suggest the charity, they can participate as technologists for the weekend. I'll open it up to the panel. Any last thoughts around how people can participate or
for GiveCamp, as I said with givecamp.org, and one thing I do want to add in is to, as I mentioned, don't worry about your skill set. Maybe you're not that into Azure. Maybe talking about TLS integrations is too much for you and outside of your comfort zone. But with GiveCamp, there are all sorts of different projects all happening at these events all at the same time, and anybody of any area of expertise with any skill level can absolutely contribute, be a wonderful contributor.
Thanks, Jay. We're at time, but I just wanted to see if Andy, Heather, Fabian, do you have any other lasting thoughts you'd like to share?
Sure. This is Fabian. On the note of contributing and participating, a lot of the things that was said today, I just want to echo some of that. You know, virtual meetups are going to be more prevalent now than in person, or at least you know, come to some type of equilibrium. So certainly go to that. I'm a big fan of docs.microsoft.com. You know, go there. There's usually a quick start, usually some great information that you can go there, you can figure out and get something out there. The idea, the one takeaway that I want to say for what we've done here today with the COVID-19 sentiment survey is that over nights and weekends, we're able to take something from idea to out the door relatively quickly. You know, if you want to scale it later, but the fact it's on Azure makes it pretty simple. But don't hesitate. You know, start now. Put something out there. Figure it out as you go. Do iterative trials. You know, fail fast, fail forward is a great mantra for that. But don't let the idea of not being able to get to where you believe the end is delay you in at least starting.
Thank you, Fabian.
The other thing that I'll throw out there is that if you see a need for something, something in the community, the tech community, something adjacent to your tech community, be bold in thinking that you might be able to do something small that might help and improve the situation, and think about reaching out to the people that you might know in your circle or other tech leaders in your community that you can ask for advice and ask for help. They might be able to help you. They might be able to give you some advice. Most of us are very willing to share, depending on the person, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, and just ask, just think, and do what you can to solve that gap that you see in the community.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I know that don't be afraid to be the snowball effect. just start the snowball and it'll all roll downhill from there. I didn't know how many people were also just waiting to see if they could also jump on doing something good. You need to be not afraid to be the person who's dancing on the top of the hill. Before you know it, a lot of people will be like, yeah, I've been kind of looking to do something in that area, and they'll join you.
Thank you all so much, Andy, Heather, Fabian, Jay, for this really inspiring session. My intent for the audience is that I hope you feel inspired that every person's thoughts, ideas, and your action can make a positive impact to their community. Before I move on to the next topic, Jay, just one question from the audience is, can you participate in Give Camp remotely?
Yes, absolutely. You can participate in Give Camp remotely. We've had individuals as well as entire teams that weren't local at the event. There was I remember one event in Ann Arbor several years ago where there was one remote team in Columbus and a few remote developers in, I think, Memphis, Tennessee, that were all participating in Ann Arbor's Give Camp weekend. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. All right, we've got our last segment of the day. Super excited to welcome Nitya Narasimhan. She is going to go through Sketch the Docs. And Nitya, I think you're going to share your desktop or your PowerPoint. And while you get that set up, Nitya, I do have one icebreaker question for you. What is the last book you read or currently reading? Or maybe it's just a book that you enjoyed and you want to share with the audience.
Sure. By the way, I shared my screen. Let me know if you can see it. But yeah, I'll actually tell you two books. One is serious and one is kind of funny. One of the books I've been reading recently is Atomic Habits. I really, 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 really love it because we're all being swamped with so much stuff now, especially with social distancing, that you kind of need to know how to like take care of yourself and organize your time. Atomic Habits was awesome. It also helped me do things I wouldn't do. Like I need to get exercise. I bundle it with listening to audiobooks, which I love. So habits like that are awesome. The other thing, believe it or not, is I have 11-year-olds. I'm reading Big Date. If you want humor, go read kids' books. I'm not even kidding. It's just ridiculously funny. Cool. So do you want me to get started, Nina?
Yeah, go for it. Thanks, Nitya.
Awesome. Sure thing. So hi, everyone. My name is Nitya Narasimhan. I'm a developer relations PM at Microsoft, and I kind of oversee North America, US, and Canada regions. And I'm here to talk to you today about something I'm really passionate about. I want you to learn how to sketch the docs. So this is a really rapid fire guide to visual storytelling. Let's get started. So first, we're going to talk about two things, sketch notes and zines. What is a sketch note? So this, what you're seeing right here, is an example of a sketch note. And later on, you're going to see how you can actually kind of look behind the scenes at it. But a sketch note is really about how you can quickly capture images and ideas, like quickly capture an idea you're listening to with just words and images, right? You might have seen many people at conferences do something like this. And why it's important is it supports visual learning. So when you start kind of sketch noting your talks, what you're really doing is telling stories through words and pictures, but slowly you're adopting and creating yourself a vocabulary that's very familiar for the industry you're in. And if you're not doing it for yourself, this is actually, and I'll talk about this in a second, why it's important, but if you're not doing it for learning, do it because it's going to improve your professional brand. When at a conference like this, think of the stream of tweets going by and suddenly there's this like hand-drawn, very organic looking thing and people are like, whoa, what is that, right? So show your work, do it, show your work. And when you do, you're going to get two things. First is you're sharing your perspective. No matter how good or bad your sketch note is, it is yours and that matters. Second is that's going to cause you to make meaningful connections. Someone out there is going to see exactly what you see in the talk that you both listen to, and they're going to come connect to you. So it's super, super interesting. But why should you sketch note? If you didn't believe me in any of this, there's a very simple reason why. It turns out that when we learn, we all kind of tend to learn in one of three ways. We can be auditory learners, meaning we learn by listening. We can be kinesthetic learners, which means we learn by doing, or we can be visual learners. We learn by seeing. And it turns out that 65% of people have a kind of like ability to learn by seeing, or are visual learners, right? That may not always be the only thing, but it tends to be a very dominant thing. So what that means is if you're a person who goes out in public or you write blog posts or you do content and you're not thinking about visual cues, you're not being as effective reaching 2/3 of your audience. The other thing is recall. When you use visual cues, this was a study that was done that said when they showed 2,500 images to a bunch of people, they were able to remember 90% of them with accuracy 3 days later. Can happen with text. So this is really, really incredible, right? So your biggest reason for why you want to do this is so you can build a skill that does two things for you. One, as I mentioned before, you can help amplify your brand. But the other thing is that this kind of creative behavior really revitalizes your brain. It makes you think differently. And as technologists, we really want to do that. And I'm going to talk about sketchnoting really quickly, but I want to tell you there's a continuum to this. Sketchnoting is rapidly capturing ideas. But once you've got that, you can graduate to then beginning to draw characters. It's called anthropomorphism. When you have a character, if you take a server, but you kind of draw it as a little character with eyes and a nose and a heart, people like gravitate towards it. They connect to your message, right? So it's really, really important. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is when you go to metaphors. And all these 3 sites that I have, Maggie Appleton, Illustrated.dev, is awesome. What metaphors do for you is they allow you to kind of connect to people through a paradigm they already know. I know something called A. You want to teach me something called B. If somehow you can create a frame where I can see B through A, you've got me, and I can understand what you're saying better. So if you get into sketchnoting, think about this continuum. So let's go look behind the sketchnote. This is an illustration of how I drew that sketchnote you just saw. And I want you to take away 3 messages. 1, don't worry if it's imperfect. Everyone is like, I'm not an artist. No, it's nothing to do with art. It's about ideas. What you really want to understand is it's your imperfections that make it authentic. It's your imperfections that make it unique. So show it, right? And the second thing is sketchnoting is all about practice, practice, practice. If this fascinates you, I did do a session on sketchnoting 101 at Build yesterday, and I'll be doing one again at 8 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So come join me. We'll do 30 minutes where we walk through the details. But at the core, it's really about practicing a bunch of tools and tips and then doing it again and again and again. But there's another thing you can do. Sketchnoting is to make notes. But what if you're a person who speaks at a conference and you actually want to give people something away? Sketchnoting is where you learn because you're drawing stuff and kind of clarifying concepts. Zines are when you've written things down and you want to give it away so people can take away a message and have a souvenir or something really interesting to look at. So think of a zine as a homemade mini magazine, a very structured layout, a focused topic, visual storytelling. You can use the same tools and tricks you'll use in sketchnoting, except now when you're done, you end up being able to give them a sheet of paper they can print, do a little slice, fold it up, and you've got an 8-page magazine. Pretty awesome, eh? And it gives you the ability to connect with the user. Here's something you take away from my talk, and it's the message the way I want to deliver it. Here's how it goes behind the scene. This is how you draw it. Literally, any topic you want to do, take it and convert it into 8 panels. Then you could have put it in a certain order. The first 4 panels go downwards, the last 8 go upwards. You can use a front and a back page. Lo and behold, you're done, right? So when you kind of got your zine together, think this is a great way for you to give people information. But the other thing I want to point out is when you've been seeing me do this, right? We actually do it in one of 2 ways. Pen and paper is easy. I was actually sketchnoting Satya's talk. Here it is. More importantly, while the speakers were speaking today, I was sketchnoting them all. And you know how good the session is? I have 3 pages of sketch notes. So you can always do it with pen and paper. But when you're good enough, you can graduate to something like software. We use an iPad and Procreate. And what it does is that it lets you take it from being a static image to a dynamic thing that lives and breathes, that lives on a timeline. But most important of all, now you can start doing effects. You can start learning how to convey messages differently. And most important of all, if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. You can erase, right? You can do it with pen and paper. So I'm going to leave you with just one final thought. Hopefully I'm not doing too bad on time, but I'm actually doing a session, as I mentioned. I have 2 requests for you. First, if you are interested in this, if you have any questions for me, if you think this is cool, hashtag sketch the docs, hashtag MSBuild, or I'm appnithya on Twitter, tag me. I would love to share resources. I'd love to hear from you. I did 2 sessions. I did one yesterday. I'll be doing one tomorrow. What I want you to do, what I really want you to do is go out there and start sketching. So I have 3 little examples here. One is a link to a doc. One is a link to a Learn page, which is a module, which is a tutorial. And one is to a Channel 9 video. If you come to my talk tomorrow or catch it on demand later, you'll kind of get to see how you might then go get started building your sketch note for one of these. And the difference is as follows. Docs and Learn are pages. You can actually see what you have to sketch before you start sketching. So it's a constraints problem. Single sheet of paper, you got to get all this information out there. You can do it. Video, on the other hand, it's like a live talk. You got to sketch as you go, figure out if you'll have space, etc. So what I want you to do is challenge yourself. Pick one of those targets, and then try to do a sketch note or try to do a zine and share it with us. Hashtag sketch the docs, hashtag MSBuild at Nithya. And I'm going to leave it here, but basically, remember I was telling you about a zine? That's what it looks like. In fact, on my Twitter feed, I shared out the single page print. So if you want to go print it out and make yourself a zine, by all means, go ahead. Interestingly, that zine is literally the summary of the talk I will give tomorrow. So you will get your tips and tricks for how you can sketchnote right there in that one sheet. Most importantly, I want to leave you with one simple message. Sketchnoting is about visual storytelling. 65% are visual learners. You want to convey a message, you should start beginning to get a visual vocabulary in what you do. Don't be afraid. Show your work. It's not about the art, it's about the ideas. So you don't have to be perfect, just be persistent. Practice, practice, practice. And I hope I see your sketch notes soon. Thank you all so much. And thank you so much to US Dev for having me.
Nithya, we have a few questions from the audience. One question is, I have the same ATO poster. Was that from the rally event?
Yes, who is on there? Yes, All Things Open. And shout out to Crystal, who's on the line. All Things Open actually even had an open source 101 at home. So they're doing virtual events, so check them out. Yeah, I love art. And that poster really spoke to me. And I was there, so maybe we ran into each other. I was at the Microsoft booth.
Two more questions. First one is, do you sketchnote quickly, then go back to make changes, add color, etc.?
Yes. So this is literally the example. Here is my sketch note from what you can actually, let me see. Here's Francois talking about Cloud Scales Challenge. You see that right there? This is how I sketch note in real time. It's just black and white. That's it. So your goal with sketchnoting is put stuff down as fast as you can. Later on, you come and use color. And this is actually some things I talk about in my workshop. This is Satya's keynote. Same thing. But now when I put color, things stand out to you, right? You're like, oh, there was something in there that's important. Now I'm beginning to see space between stuff. It doesn't look overwhelming. So on pen and paper, absolutely, I have to do it that way because when I'm at an event, I just want to capture stuff fast. I want to listen, pay attention to what's important, write it down. And then you can kind of like finesse with colors and all later. Digital life is much easier, right? You can actually like clip out stuff, move it around, make the space. So your life is much, much more fun.
And last question, Nithya, before we go to Crystal to wrap it up. The question is, have you ever tried a vector sketching program? I would recommend SavvyDraw, a UWP app with voice shortcuts.
Oh, absolutely. I would love, love, love to try it out. So I have tried vector sketching programs. I kind of, in everything I talk about visual note-taking and all that, I try to promote people just starting with pen and paper. Because in one way, and I forgot to mention this, the reason I'm so passionate about visual storytelling is it's inclusive. Anyone can do it and anyone can understand. It's not about language, it's really pictures, right? So to me, it's like, hey, from a low-hanging fruit, pen and paper is all you need to start conveying ideas. But to your point, yeah, the more tools you have, the more fun you can. I'll also throw a shout out to Microsoft Garage. When I first started working with this, I had a Windows touch-based screen. And it was, I'm trying to remember the name of the app, but it came from Microsoft Garage. And it was a really, really awesome kind of, I don't think it's even there anymore, but it allowed you to sketch and create images really quickly. And it had what they call the toilet paper mode, unlimited paper. You could just keep adding and expanding your screen. It was totally beautiful. But yeah, thank you for the hint. I will check it out. Hopefully I stuck to time.
Yeah, you did a great job, Nithya. Thank you so much for that sketchnoting session. It was amazing to wrap everything up. I hope all of you sincerely enjoyed the 2 hours that we've put together for you. Nina, great job moderating, and Nils and Karen throughout the session, totally great job. Thank you to all of our speakers and attendees who stuck with us. I wish I had like swag to give you like through the airways, but I don't, I'm sorry, but I do have some CTAs I can share with you. So got to get those in there. Your next steps for joining us for 2 hours. We've got some challenges for you online. You can go to one of our online webinars. You can sign up for a Cloud Skills Challenge, which Patrick and Francois took you through earlier. Of course, they also showed you the developer newsletter. It's like Hacker News style. The links are all in the IM window, so just go over to the chat and then you can click on these links. You can also type in the AKAs, they're not that hard, but thank you for joining us for these 2 hours. We hope you enjoy the rest of Build and be well.